And speak of the devil, there he is as he appears. This was I was just playing your review there of it for it, just looking at it. Thank you.
Good old Spinal Tap. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, I was saying that. I mean, kind of the band. I mean, y'all could kind of be the band. I think is good, kind of 1-to-1 there. Look kind of there. I say it's all long hair. I mean, we could put a wig on Forrest, and we could do something there.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the exploding drummer would be necessarily in this outfit, but take that if you will. Definitely, Forrest and I have had some Daniel St. Hubbins, Nigel Tufnell style back and forths over the years for sure. I guess the question, does that make Christina Derek Smalls? I guess so.
I guess. And then who would Jay be?
Jay Underworld would be Viv.
Viv, okay.
He'd be the keyboard player.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this is like an all-time favorite comedy, an all-time favorite movie of mine, and I'm happy to talk about it because I feel like it's often quoted, but I don't think it's actually discussed that much, which is interesting because there is this Spinal Tap 2. You know, they did a sequel coming up, you know, and it's interesting how little it's actually discussed. Yet amongst band people, I mean, it's just back and forth all the time with quotes, period. You know, there's so many, God, it hits. So basically, one of the most apocryphal quotes I think you can, to understand Spinal Tap, Ozzy Osbourne watched it and like didn't realize it was a comedy at first. Like, like when it came out, like it was, and you got to admit, and this is Ozzy then his peak, you know, drugged out era, but it was like totally didn't understand why people were laughing. It's you know, it hit, and that's one of the reasons why it's so good is because it hits so close to what the world of band life is, and it's portrayed as excess, like the arena rock excess, you know, like a Led Zeppelin and things along those lines, but it's done so well, and in the way that you see like their old bands. Oh, it's their skiffle band. You know, here's the one where they had like the pop hit, and they're on like, you know, they had Sullivan Style Show, and you have their flower. You know, listen to what the flower people say, and it's like done really well in that genre. And you see the throughout the genre of rock and roll as we know it. You see that they've kind of adapted and changed and whatnot in such a ways that if you're familiar with the stories of actual big bands of that era, it's even funnier because it's like, oh yeah, I know who that's lampooning. You know, Stonehenge, that's Thin Lizzy. You know, like that's you know, but also it's a little bit of Black Sabbath when they had a big stage prop that didn't work. And the chrysalis when he gets stuck in the chrysalis. It's great. And you don't need to know those things to be like, wow, that's ridiculous and absurd. But what's interesting to me, and I'd be interested in your take on this, Josh, is because I am a little older than you, but I came in at the tail end of kind of the arena rock world, right? Like when I was in high school is when grunge hit and like all the big hair farmer bands were kind of like on the outs and whatnot. And like the big arena rock productions were kind of like seen with sort of scorn and scrutiny, justifiably so, if you ask me. But I don't feel like we have those kinds of kind of monoculture sensibilities anymore. Like if we do, it's going to be something like a Kanye or something where it's just, oh, he's just really too online. You know, it isn't like the ridiculousness of a live show, because even the ridiculousness of the live show has been sort of absorbed into the pop entity, right? We just talk about, oh, well, of course Taylor Swift has this like gigantic show with like, I don't know, I have no idea what's in a Taylor Swift show, frankly. But if you said there was an exploding vagina, I'd be like, sure, yeah, it makes sense.
Like I don't know, like Chaperone or
yeah, Beyonce, I mean, whoever,
Lady Gaga.
Sure, Lady Gaga is probably a good example because she has a sense of the absurd. But I mean, there was a time that it was like, wow, isn't it absurd that like these guys are. You know, that like the rock and roll show, which the real push for that was Kiss, which say what you will about them as people, especially Gene Simmons, But I mean, they like exploded the drum sets and had fireworks, and like it was a show, and that just got bigger and bigger as that band got bigger, and that became sort of an arms race for ridiculous things that have nothing to do with music. And so a lot of what Spinal Tap is referencing is sort of like a band being in that world and in the lexicon of the movie and the world, that they're a band of this level that you just don't know, which again makes perfect sense why Ozzy didn't know it was a comedy, you know.
So that was a great lead in there to talk about this movie. So we're going to be doing a retro review of This Is Spinal Tap there. Reason why I'm doing this, there is the sequel coming out. I played a little bit of the trailer for this. There is a sequel coming out called Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, which is releasing this week in theaters there. They did re-release the original film in theaters for a limited time there, so people could see it. So people did do that there, which is probably good.
I would have loved to have seen that in the theater, especially with a big crowd. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, and hello, thank you, Lucky Dog. Thank you, man. Much appreciated there. But yeah, so they are doing it a 41-year later sequel there to this movie because this came out in 1984. The first one did, and like you said, it's a mockumentary there style of comedy about this fake band called Spinal Tap. And starring in the movie, it's directed by Rob Reiner, who's a longtime director there. People might know him for a lot of classic films that he's done over the years there. People know he did A Few Good Men. He's done Misery. He's done also a movie I really liked a lot there as well. I kind of like LBJ. That's decent, I think, as well there. I think that's
I forgot he did that. Yeah. He has a lot of like pretty good movies, and I will say his hit ratio for me, for my sensibilities lately, not so great, which I think is maybe the biggest reason to be wary about the Spinal Tap sequel, is that just, you know, there's just a certain thing to be said. It was a time and a place, and honestly, the birth of the rockumentary, you know, the mockumentary, just where it was like, oh, this is. And we think about it now, and it's so normalized. It's so just and think of things like Borat or something along those lines, right? That it's like, oh, this is a documentary, but really it's like being played for comedy, and this is, you know, certain things are exaggerated and or people are both in or not in on it. Like we think of it all the time. There was nothing like this at the time. Nothing at all like this. And then people will be like, oh, I love Christopher Guest movies. Cool, me too. Christopher Guest is in this movie, but this is Rob Reiner. This is not Christopher Guest. Because Christopher Guest did like Best in Show, Mighty Win, Waiting for Guffman, so on and so on. Great movies that are even more like improv based. Yeah, I mean, Rob Reiner, for me, it's all about Stand By Me, Princess Bride's amazing, Misery's fantastic. You mentioned Few Good Men. When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, that.
Good. I actually watched that for the first time this year. I just had never seen it for whatever reason. And I mean, even though it's pretty dated, American President's is pretty good. That's a wildly divisive since it's Aaron Sorkin written, and it's sort of American President begat The West Wing. So I don't know. I guess you can kind of blame that on Rob Reiner, but mostly Aaron Sorkin. But I think that it defined a genre that we think about as just a genre of comedy now. There was just not anything like Spinal Tap at the time, and there certainly was not in the world of rock and roll, band world, kind of behind the curtain, if you will. And so it was groundbreaking in a number of ways. And again, that's why you mentioned the Movie Night Extravaganza episode we did, which was a crossover episode with my show, Protonic Reversal. And we had Chris Murphy of Sloan came on for that. Brian Teasley of Manor Astromite came on for that. Jerry Casale of Devo came on for that. And he mentioned in the course of the episode that Devo, you know, where they like get lost backstage and they can't find the stage and they keep like going round and round in circles. That actually happened to them. That actually happened to Devo. And I've heard that from like in interviews, Tom Petty, that happened to, like a bunch of bands, like bigger bands, not like bands like my size, but like big bands, like have had that actual thing happen to them, which makes it even funnier because it's like, oh no, this is the reason why it works is because it is based in like a certain reality that maybe we're kind of far afield from at this point. But I think it really works. So I'm curious, like, what's your take on Spinal Tap as far as that goes?
Just as far as the cultural kind of touchstone in it, as far as
I'm curious.
Well, you know, I'd seen this movie before. I hadn't seen it in a long time. So it was interesting going back and watching it again. I do like this style of music. I think they called it, I think with this classified cock rock is what the kind of what this is, I guess.
Hard rock's probably the preferred nomenclature, but yeah, sure. I mean, anytime you got cucumber stuffed into your pants wrapped in tinfoil, I suppose cock rock's going to be involved, right?
That kind of period. Thin Lizzy, as you mentioned there.
Yeah.
Poison was big around this time in the 80s. So I can see the references there to a lot of that kind of the hair metal bands of that time. And there was a movie that came out that kind of also when the music, because there's still plenty of music documentaries that still come out today. And I wonder, did you ever see Pop Star Never Stop Popping?
Yeah. Pretty good. I guess that's sort of like, and that's like a sort of modern equivalent, kind of dealing with like the more pop world. Because now that's kind of what it is, right? It's either it's going to be some light sanitized version of hip hop, or it's going to be this like manufactured pop sensibility, et cetera, et cetera. And that's culturally where we are for what is left of a monoculture. But there would be no pop star without a Spinal Tap. Flat out. I mean, it just wouldn't exist. There's no way. I mean, I guess you have the Ruddles, which is sort of like the Monty Python Beatles takeoff, which is funny, but it doesn't hit the same way. And my point when we did it on Movie Extravaganza was that you had 3 different artists, prominent artists in their field, 3 different genres that all absolutely related to this movie, and in the way that they laughed hard, but also hit a little too close to home here and there. And wow, that there's something to be said for that, because I don't think there's another movie that like that for music. Whereas to say that something like Pop Star, another one I'll say Walk Hard, like that, and that's more of an excoriating the biopic world as well. But I feel like there's a bunch for like comedy and other creative acts and things along those lines, but there's nothing quite like Spinal Tap, which is why the pressure's on. Because I actually talked to Jerry Casale of Devo, because I said, "Hey, there's this Reiner's doing the Spinal Tap sequel. It's coming out. You know, if it's any good, you know, do you want to come on for that again?" He's like, "There's no way that's going to be any good." It's the first thing he said. Which I was like, "Jeez." Tough room, which, you know, I like to live in hope. I like to not be cynical about things. You know, we'll see.
So, I mean, is this the biggest gap we've ever had between 2 sequels, you think? Like 41 years? I'm trying to think
a
of
long time, man. I mean, well, let's see. Okay, so 28 years later wasn't even 28 years. It was, that's a good... How long was it for Color of Money and is it Color of Money? Right. And the one before that with Paul Newman. Why can't I think of what it is? The Hustler.
Hustler.
The Hustler. Hustler and Color of Money, 61 and 86. Okay, gotta do math. 25. 25 years. I think so. But it is interesting because they kind of because the interesting thing about Spinal Tap 2, and it's different from something like Pop Star or Walk Hard, is that these guys will occasionally just get together as the characters for like a goof to do things. And a perfect example, I have the DVD, not even Blu-ray, DVD. And if you listen to the commentary track on the This Is Spinal Tap DVD, they do a commentary in character that is as hilarious as the actual movie. Now, how can you, if you don't have a physical copy of this, how do you find it? I don't know. I assume somebody probably uploaded it to the internet somewhere, but that's how much they enjoy these characters, and they do them all in character, and it's really good. And they've also done a few things over the years. There's a theater chain in Wisconsin, fantastic, that they're making a kind of a big to-do about premiering the Spinal Tap 2. And so they did like, I think it was, let's see, it was when I saw Caught Stealing. They had an upfront that had like the head of this theater chain with the guys from Spinal Tap in character as Spinal Tap, like doing a bit, like that kind of level of effort. You see what I mean? Where it's the characters are important to people. Like, I don't know how many bands have covered Big Bottom, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's preposterous, right? I mean, but it's also like, oh, it's a song that features the bass. They did this whole thing a couple years back where they got like 28 bass players on stage at some, like some festival or something, and they all played Big Bottom. Probably to the utter confusion of most of the people in the crowd. It's like, what is this? But it has that kind of cachet, is what I'm getting at. It has that kind of cachet that other movies even don't. Even A Mighty Wind, which is kind of like the same thing, but folk music, doesn't have that same cachet. There's something about Spinal Tap, which means that the pressure's on. Like, it matters more. It matters more that it needs to be good. And so that's why I'm, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. Members of Devo are pretty much assured it's going to suck.
Yeah. I think. I was going to say, I mean, thinking about just legacy sequels and sequels that, there was a big gap. There was Blade Runner, and that did turn out good, and you did. But that didn't have the same director come back. That was a different one. That was, from Ridley Scott to Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. So that's 2017 versus 1982, right? So
yeah.
That's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
God, I didn't realize I'd be doing so much math.
Yeah, but it's not the same, obviously, as, this between the two of these ones.
Yeah, and that's a science fiction world. And I think in a world of science fiction, like that kind of thing makes sense. Although it's easier to kind of screw it up at the same time. But like with Spinal Tap, they're also playing on the fact of these old AF bands and artists coming back for another bite of the apple, which, okay, that's funny. I mean, look at there's my friend Jason Miles, regular on Movie Night Extravaganza. This Is Revolution is his show. He has literally played in my touring band. Really great dude. He before This Is Revolution kind of took off, he worked a lot of festivals and stuff, like just as like a day job thing between tours. And I forget what they called it, but the thing that they called it was basically Old Cella, because it was all like Paul McCartney and The Who and like whatever. And all these bands are like, yeah, those bands are great in like, 1972. Like, but like now it's just like all these people that haven't, listened to a new record in 30 years or whatever, you know what I mean? And so they called it Old Cella, and Jason was like, bro. And I was like, what? It's like, you will not believe like how much money is flying around to this thing. It's like, no, I mean, I believe it, because these are all people that it's all boomers, right? They got all the money, so of course there is. It's gonna be big money. Get your Lipitor and chill, listen to some tunes.
So do you think that's what kind of the sequels and kind of going to touch on, just like bands coming out of retirement, doing one final tour, even though it's not going to be the final tour? That's going to kind of be the commentary.
I think that might be where they go, because look at like Kiss, right? They've been doing the final tour for like what seems like 10 years now. It's like, you still going, huh? Yeah, Stones, exactly. Yeah, and they'll probably do some ticket price related humor, $500 tickets and stuff like that. And the Stones was the first one I saw that did that, where it's like, what, really? Is that a joke? It's like, no. Oh, wow. And I mean, it's like, all right, if you're seeing them in like 1969 maybe or something, but like, I don't know about now.
And it'd be funny, I don't know, I think maybe
there's nothing wrong with rocking while getting older, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm not. I do it myself. I'm not hating on the old. I'm just saying that, and you know what? I can sit here and bitch about it and not buy a ticket, and that's fine. Those shows will do just fine, so great. But I think there is that kind of nostalgia industrial complex thing that I hope that they lay into. I think it'll be kind of a miss if they don't, frankly.
Yeah. Like Gen Z people getting them to be ironic, hipsters or something like that. Yeah.
Well, Walk Hard's a great example of, there's the scene near the end of the movie. I actually forgot about this till we covered it on the show, where it gets sampled by a rapper, like one of his songs, but he's and then like he gets invited to like the Grammys or whatever, and he doesn't even understand why he's there. It's like, what are, like, oh, they sample one of your songs, and it's like a 1 second piece, and this like really dirty rap that was like very popular. Like however they get there, I think there's a lot of ways you engage with that, because the whole thing with Spinal Tap is they're earnest at who they are. And they're a certain archetype. Like, they're not villains. They're not they maybe don't have a savviness that we equate with everything now, but they come from that time that you would get lost backstage because like why would you know why would you know the way to the stage? I have a guy for that, and it's like that world, and now that world's gone. So then it'll be interesting in a good way, I hope, to see those changes applied and with humor. Because if you look at, I mean, all the Christopher Guest stuff, it's always consistent. Michael McKean's a kind of more known, just like Bob Odenkirk. That Rennie did is Bob Odenkirk's brother in Better Call Saul. People don't even realize it's the same guy. It's like, no, that's Michael McKean, man. That's like, that guy's like been a comedic. He was in Happy Days. He's been a comedic actor for forever. And I think that the fact that those guys really embody those characters and live those characters, I think that carries you a long way. And I think that to a certain degree, I guess we'll find out. You can just lift and shift them into different positions and kind of see, all right, well, that is funny or works or that doesn't. And I hope it does because, I mean, because there's plenty to be excoriated and lambasted and whatnot about our current musical world and creative world, right? I mean, that hasn't stopped. It's just like, is this going to be the medium to do it? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Well, and you talk about the cast of this, the people involved. We already mentioned Rob Reiner. And the people that wrote this, so you got Christopher Guest in there. You mentioned his resume, what he's kind of done in there. You also mentioned Michael McKean there. People who have seen recently Better Call Saul. They did an amazing performance there dramatically. That's the brother there. Harry Shearer is also in this as
Harry
well.
Shearer, amazing. Like he's got a long and storied resume of his own. Really voice actor.
Yeah.
Very
Simpsons.
like well-known voice actor in The Simpsons and whatnot. Yeah, Harry Shearer is and in a way they're like titans of their craft on their own, right? And so that's that's what I'm saying is that I hope, like I said, the fact that you have things, because that DVD release, I want to say about 20 years ago, like 22, 23 years ago, right? And they did that commentary for that DVD release. And it was funny. It was really funny. And all they were doing were like riffing on the same things. They were talking trash about Rob Reiner's character's beard, saying it was fake. They kept saying, oh, this one's dead. Oh, yeah, that one's dead. They were talking trash about the keyboard player. Like, it was funny because it was just improv comedy in the style of those characters. But also in the style of what it would be if it was a real documentary and a band was sitting there watching it and giving their commentary. And so it worked. It worked on a metacontextual level. And what is the world we live in now if not for uber metacontextual?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to play some scenes from just so people get a sense of the comedy and style there. I know if you had a favorite scene you want to kind of for me to pull up. I got, of course, the classic 11 scene right here.
Yeah, that's the one everyone knows, right? And for good reason, because it's. They've made pedals that just have 11 on the knob. You know what I mean? Like these things have become so normalized into society that it's huge. But if you somehow haven't seen it, it still goes. It's still funny. I've shown this to people the first time, and they totally laugh every time.
If you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look. Right across the board, 11, 11,
and most of
11, and
the amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it? It's not 10. You see, most blokes are going to be playing at 10. You're on 10 here, all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. You're on 10 on your guitar. Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
Amazing, right? Because it's so idiosyncratic. It's so very much of that world, that you think of, especially amongst 70s bands where everybody is trying to be louder than everybody else and so on and so on. But it works even without all that because it's just absurd. Like, well, why don't you just make 10 louder? Well, but these go to 11. Great. That's what can you say to that? It's amazing. The repeated shtick of the drummers dying. He died in a bizarre gardening accident. spontaneous combustion, so on and so on. They keep having like these. And includes. And I think when I relogged it on Letterboxd, Nigel Tufnell says, "Well, you can't really dust for vomit." He choked on his own vomit. Oh well, was it his own or someone else's? Well, you can't really dust for vomit. So that's what I'm talking about. Where it's just like they're just going, there's riffing, right? Great. And it's funny because I'm a huge fan of strong writing in comedy, but there is something to be said for just if you just go gags a minute, right? And like maybe they don't all land and some kind of sail by. That works too. I mean, Naked Gun's a perfect example of that, right? It's kind of a getting that back, but rather than it being like sight gags, it's mostly language based in this case. But then there's also like repeated things, like you see the party scene, and Nigel's got a cold sore, and David St. Hubman's got a cold sore. Like they've all got cold sores, and you're like, why do they have cold sores suddenly? It's like, well, you gotta imagine they're getting up to some kind of nonsense. And apparently, that I've actually read before coming on this show tonight that there was a dropped subplot where there was an opening band that had like female members, and I guess that the conceit was that they slept with the same woman and whatever, but they just didn't. They thought it slowed down the movie, so they took it out. But now they have the cold sores. So then people are like, "Oh, were they in a relationship together?" People theorizing all those other kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, I think the important thing why this works, the songs are good, even when they're like purposefully bad. I'll give you a perfect example on the classic song "Tonight We're Gonna Rock You Tonight." Where first of all, it goes pretty hard. It's just a good tune. But there's like the lead that Christopher Guest's character does, where it says and it is maybe the dumbest thing that you've ever heard. But it works in the context of the song, right? So on the new Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends record, there's a song called Chekhov's Grift, that there is a guitar lead that is like that, where in the fact that when showing it to folks, I'd be like, no, you're playing it too skillfully. Think of it as like a 12-year-old boy who's very impressed with himself. because it goes into the ridiculousness of what's happening, and that too skillful of a guitar lead there would ruin it. It would just be distracting. And man, that's hard to do. That's hard to do for people that are just musicians, let alone gifted improvisers and actors and comedians who also know how to play music. Like, so respect for that.
Yeah,
as well.
And that's a good thing to mention. All of these people, they do sing and they do play the instruments there in the movie. So they do have that. And also in this kind of mockumentary, it seems like a lot of scenes, it's like kind of a series of scenes and then cut to them playing music on stage, series of scenes, then them. So it's a lot of that pattern throughout the movie that you see there. So you get hear a lot of them do sing. And the songs, like you mentioned, are pretty solid.
They're catchy. They're catchy in ways that you're like, working on a sex farm. Oh, whoa, I'm at the grocery store. I shouldn't be singing that, and that's I feel personally that's one of the reasons why the movie is as cult popular as it is because that stuff resonates, and that's something that's going to make you want to rewatch it and be like, oh yeah, remember when they do Big Bottom? Yeah, that's hilarious, But I think also at the heart of it, it's the story between the two guitar players, right? And you have the classic thing, and I'm going to be very careful to not speak in gender terms on it, but the bringing your significant other on tour thing, at any level, das ist verboten. Unless you're a band that's a couple or something, right? Or there's like some other alternate arrangement, but that's never good. Like the girlfriend comes on tour. I suppose it could be boyfriend as well. No, bad. Everyone hates it. It's never been good. It's never been good. Unless they're a playing member, and everybody's on board with it. It's never ever a good situation. And so that's something that's universally relatable too, because especially when any musician who's been around, who has been playing in bands for a while, there's usually like some early band where somebody, hey, got great news, everybody. Joanne's coming with. Oh, yeah. Really? Who okayed that? So that's cool too. But that introduces the tension between the two guys. That these guys have been, they've played music together like their entire lives, and they've built a professional career out of it. They have this great, whether it's your genre of music or not, you can't deny that they vibe creatively very well together. They're better together than they are apart, so on and so on. And then the course of the movie, you have the tension builds, and Nigel leaves. And then you get that great scene that you played earlier where they're at the they're at the freaking Air Force station, right? And he's like watching side stage, and then St. Hubbins is like, come on, come on stage. Just come on. And he comes on, he straps on his guitar, wireless, and he just starts ripping into like a solo, and then like the air traffic control radio signal interferes with it, so he starts getting like the air traffic control radio stuff through the guitar, and it's screwed. And it's so funny because there's so build up, and this is the thing I'm talking about. There's so much emotional build up. Like, yeah, that's awesome. Nigel's back playing with them. Even the crowd's finally stoked. It's like, oh, that's great. This is the tap that we want to see. But he's got a wireless unit, and it fritzes out, which is a thing that does happen, especially among some radio frequencies. So he gets like a little moment of like shredding, and like it's awesome, and then classic tap moment where he's like, hey, what's going on? Where's that sound coming from? And it's so funny because this movie has so many of those moments, like when Derek Smalls gets caught in the freaking those mollusk shells that they get released from, that's amazing. There's when Stonehenge, they build it in inches instead of feet. So you have like a tiny Stonehenge that dwarves are dancing around. Little people, sorry, pardon me. Like those are things where just like, and then what's funny is within the commentary, which is on my mind because I just watched a couple hours ago, is that they're like, oh, why are they showing all these parts? Why didn't they show the parts where that didn't happen? And that works on a different level too, because again, you have the characters interacting with this as if they were real events. They commit to the bit. All that works so well. But the fact of that, the reason why that's such a big laugh at the Air Force performance is because you really do have a stake of like, oh man, I hope they can work it out. Just because you're like, you're like, yeah, these guys are idiots, but like they're better together, and you want to see them like succeed on whatever way and capacity that they can, even if you have like a little bit of disengagement from it. And that heart is what carries it.
Yeah. And just do you think people can enjoy this? You think even if they're not big musical fans? I think you said before, because there are so many musical references in it. I mean, even with the girlfriend. I mean, a lot of people that's like become like a verb, like you Yoko Ono the band. Yeah. That's kind of been a thing there.
And whether you feel that that's accurate or fair to say or not, you're right. That is something that's a monocultural, somewhat misogynistic thing, and honestly, I got long thoughts about that, but does that get over? I think a lot of it does anyway. I think there are things that if you do play music, it hits even deeper because there are certain signifiers where you're just like, oh my god, that's amazing. Like again, and that's one of the reasons why but these go to 11. Why that's one of the things everyone knows from this, because that works on both of those. When they have when they're talking about, well, we got a review of your record Shark Sandwich. It's just a 2-word review. Shit sandwich. And like, what? They can't print that. I mean, everybody can relate to that. That's hilarious because it's like just, if you ever have reviewed anything, if you can just come up with a short, succinct play on words and that's the review, that's like the best thing ever. And that's always going to be hilarious. It's always going to be funny. Again, I don't even need to think you need to be a fan of the music necessarily to appreciate that this is their built world, and that's why that works. I felt the same way about Walk Hard too. Like I felt like that's got, the songs are good, and if the songs are good, that's gonna ease you along. But this is such a weird animal of a movie, like that it's essentially like not a broad comedy, but it somehow has broad appeal, and it's harder to do now.
Yeah. And I
mean, Pop Star. You just mentioned Pop Star, right? That was well known amongst us nerds, right? But did that have the same, talk to your family about it or something? Probably not. Maybe. It depends on your family. I don't know. Maybe.
And I love how it does with the interviews. Are my favorite thing when you have Rob Reiner just talking to him, and it captures the sometimes pretentiousness of musicians and artists.
Oh
Sometimes,
yeah.
of like, I think it gets that leads to a lot of great humor. Like I like the "Lick My Love Pup" scene.
He's just gorgeous. So, and what Josh is talking about, folks, if you haven't seen the movie, yeah. So Nigel, this Christopher Guest character is Nigel Tufnell. He's playing this really gorgeous piano composition. It's so beautiful. It's so kind of like classically infused. Like, wow, that's really a very strong composition. It's very adult sounding compared to this puerile, juvenile like rock music about thinly veiled sex analogies and whatnot. And then you get to the end of it, and Victor DeBerge is like, "Oh, what's that called?" And he goes, "Oh, lick my love pump."
Let's check out the scene right here.
It's pretty. Yeah, I like it. Just been fooling about with it for a few months now. Very delicate.
It's a bit of a departure from the kind of thing you normally play.
Yeah, well, it's part of a trilogy, really, a musical trilogy that I'm doing in D minor, which I always find is really the saddest of all keys, really. I don't know why, but it makes people weep instantly to play a... It's a horn part.
It's very pretty.
Just simple lines, intertwining. Very much like I'm really influenced by Mozart and Bach, and it's sort of in between, though. It's like a Mach piece, really.
What do you call this?
Well, this piece is called Lick My Love Pump.
Great. No notes. Amazing. And it kills because, again, like you mentioned, these are all very much like, oh well, it's a trilogy, and it's this musical modality and this and that and the other thing. By the way, in the commentary, the St. Albans character is like, "Oh, did you ever finish that?" "Oh no, I'm still working on it." That's the other joke about like some pretentious thing that you're working on that like no one ever, it never gets actually done because and the idea behind it from an artistic perspective is because you're scared of committing to something that might fail, so on and so on. So that works on like 4 levels as a joke, right? But then it's also just it's a good delivery for like what is just an absurd ribald title as well, which is great. I mean, like all that works, and I get for my sensibilities anyway. Like if someone were to say Spinal Tap, oh that's stupid, I'd be like yes it is. That's the point.
Do you think are you able to choose who's your favorite person maybe of the cast, or like that stands out maybe, or do you think it's all just pretty equally across the board?
I mean, Nigel's character is probably the most relatable, I think, because he's the one that kind of he at least has an artistic journey and idea, and definitely seems to be like the most well-rounded out of all of them, which is not saying much, by the way. It's pretty hard not to love Derek Smalls, though, who's just and I can only say this with peace and love in my heart, almost the living embodiment of what people think bass players are, and often are, which is just like they're well-meaning. Sometimes they have silly mustaches. Yeah, there's an aspect of Derek Smalls that would like, wow, if there hadn't been a Derek Smalls, someone else would have had to make that character. But they're all good. That's the thing. Even Viv, who's like, look at that mustache, amazing. Even the keyboard player, who they canonically never turn the microphone on for. By the way, he's always singing, but they never have the microphone turned on for him, and he's always got silly hats on and whatnot. They're all kind of like lovable in their like weird irascible way, right? Like and there's something in them, even as they just make the most absurd art you've ever seen, are generally oblivious and terrible to each other. You kind of want to see them succeed. But then you also have situations where it's like Spinal Tap, Puppet Show and Spinal Tap, right? Where they get billed below the Puppet Show. By the way, that's something that very much in the world of bands, anytime there's like a absurd a disrespectful billing, everybody, I trust that I say this with a certain degree of authority. Everybody's thinking of Puppet Show plus Spinal Tap. That's what they're thinking of, because it's like, oh, the idea of like, this is where we're at, huh? We're playing to 40 people during the day at like an amusement park in Stockton. Okay. By the way, I grew up in the city next to Stockton, so I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that Stockton that this happens in. So, I mean, I think one of the reasons why is all the characters work. Even the I guess we call her like the Yoko-fied Janine character, the June Chadwick role. I mean, even her character works because she wants the best for her dude, right? She wants her best for David St. Hubbins, and it puts her at odds with Nigel, for sure. And again, in this classic archetype of the outsider coming in and believing that they're hey, I made up these character designs, and it's like, what? Like someone's a lizard? Like what is that? Like someone else is like a alien? Like what? Like how would we do this? And then Derek Smalls is like, oh, it'll take us hours to put all that on. It's totally true. And it's like this, and then they're at basically like the corner table of a Denny's talking about this too, which is just brilliant. It's so great. But one of the reasons why is like even. Like there aren't anybody that's like villains that love doing villainy. Everyone's kind of the hero of their own story. And gosh, that's one of the reasons why when you think about getting back to the Naked Gun, right? Whether we're talking about the Liam Neeson one or Leslie Nielsen, if you play it straight and like have the absurdity around you happening, that counts for so much more, and it hits differently. And I've come to realize that I have a serious problem with stuff that gets too self-aware, like cripplingly self-aware. I think that it can only engage on a very surface level. And so for my particular taste for comedy, I appreciate when people kind of go deep like that. And this is a perfect example of that. I mean, I don't even think there's any bad characters. Even the drummers are great, as for the little amount of time that they're around, like
I did like that one clip, the one scene there with the drummer where they're speaking to one of the recent ones, and he's in the bathtub and he's talking about all the other drummers that have died, and he says like, well, it kind of can't happen again, right?
Yeah. What are the odds? The next thing you know, boom.
This is a quick scene. I'll play a little bit of it here.
Spinal Tap drummer in the past. Do you have any fear?
When I did join, they did tell me they kind of took me aside and said, well, Mick, it's like this. And it did kind of freak me out a bit, but it can't always happen.
Right.
To every, can it?
Right.
I mean,
the law of averages
says
you will survive.
Yeah.
And you gotta love him doing the thing where he stands on the drums, just eats it hard. Like that's such a quick. It's like. It's a disposable gag in the middle of another gag. And it works. It works so well. And again, it's in those ways that I've seen people do that. Local band like tried to do some like antics and it just goes south. Like, and it's like, oh man. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're gonna wreck everything.
Some fun little quick trivia about the movie. So the movie is entered in the Library of Congress there.
Is it really?
The National Film Registry there. Some movies do that for being culturally significant. So that movie is in there. Hey, that's going there. Downtown Abbey. That's going there. Love Spinal Tap.
Oh, Abby. What's up?
Hey. Critical acclaimed there. This movie was as well. Box office wise, didn't really do too well. Didn't do crazy numbers. They had a budget of $2 million, made a box office of $5.8 million. So not crazy there. Some little trivia there. This originally, Rob Reiner.
I think it did most of its video rentals. I think is where it kind of really took off and achieved its cult status. Because I mean, I'll freely admit, dude, in 1984, I was like way busy being a child. I'm old and that old. So I mean, first, this was a classic VHS rental, right? And then then DVDs and whatnot. And I feel like every time there was like a home version that came around, it kind of built a new following because of that. So I'd be curious what the numbers are with that, because I think, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind it is indeed a cult classic at this point.
Yeah.
But we all know cult classics don't necessarily pay the bills.
Yeah. This happened in 2002. He got entered in the Library of Congress. 2002.
They entered the film registry then? That's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, and because so the DVD I have, it came out in 2001. I think that's when they finally did the DVD, the DVD release, and they had a commentary track that I talked about, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And it kind of had like a new, either folks that didn't know it kind of found out about it, or remembered, whatever.
Yeah. Rob Reiner was also supposed to be a part of the band, but they said he didn't look good in some of the costumes, so he just ended up directing the movie. So I don't know if you knew that already or not.
They make a joke in the commentary that he tried to come on stage and play saxophone on one of the numbers, and they like didn't allow him on stage. So I think that's kind of a meta reference to that. I think that works better, that his character is just like the observer. Right? Because you need someone that's being when we think about it in terms of modern context, you're thinking about, the Marty DeBurgi character would be like the equivalent of Philomena Kunk or, Ali G or something along those lines, where they're sort of instigating the humor to an unwitting participant. In this case, you have like the very skilled improvisers, you're getting the setup to the improviser. And then they're, in some cases, going off the script. In some cases, just like coming up with crazy stuff on the fly. So it's interesting to talk about this because it's the antecedent to that. It's the antecedent towards like the real people reactions can somehow be funny in relation to the wacky, out of control interview character. In this case, I mean, he plays it pretty straight. It's just like a guy that's doing a documentary is what it feels like. Yeah. And I think it works. You need look at the Marx Brothers. What are the Marx Brothers without Margaret Dumont? Nothing. A bunch of psychopaths. I mean, like it doesn't work if you don't have a straight person. So the fact that you have Rob Reiner's character just being kind of this straight-laced guy making a documentary, great. It would be weaker if he was part of the band.
Some other people that pop up in it, some character actors, some character comedic actors there. Fred Willard there is a good bit there. You see Fran Drescher, who hosts like a party there.
Bobby Fleckman,
Bobby Fleckman there. So you see some other people that pop up. A solid cast there you got throughout the movie.
And they come up in these like little, like Ed Begley Jr. is the drummer in the 60s iteration of Spinal Tap. John Stumpy Pepys. That's Ed Begley Jr.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't.
I didn't even notice that. Like the third time I saw, I was like, "Is that Ed Begley Jr. on drums?" And it turns out he knows how to play drums, and yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah, I mean, there's like Dana Carvey's like one of the mimes. Billy Crystal's another one of the mimes. It's Howard Hessman. People don't really know Howard Hessman these days, but WKRP in Cincinnati, he plays that Terry Ladd character. It's great. Yeah, it's star-studded. Freaking Paul Schaefer, Artie Fufkin, the radio promotion guy. That's Paul Schaefer.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a movie that also benefits you from rewatching it and then seeing all these kind of little things and references that you maybe missed before. I think it also has that going for it as well. I don't know if we're in for another. I think we talked about this when Forrest was on here discussing Naked Gun, but I don't know if we're in the sense of a parody kind of resurgence because you had Naked Gun, and then they're going to do another Scream movie. Spaceballs is going to be coming out, a sequel to that. So I think, I don't know if a mockumentary, we're going to see another kind of resurgence of that, because there used to be a lot of mockumentary shows. People know like The Office and Parks and Rec and all those shows. Seem like that cooled down as of now. Like you don't see that as much on TV.
You do have The Paper, which is a direct link to The Office for sure. And I mean, a good example I would say would be the Weird Al documentary, where it was basically tearing apart the idea of a biopic from a completely different way of just going like the most absurd way possible, just making a bunch of stuff up, right? there's something like that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like what would be like now, like what would be a Spinal Tap-esque mockumentary.
Yeah. Like, it seems like, yeah, you don't really see. I can't think of like a mockumentary film. I know a lot of shows, but I can't think of a recent one that's popping up in my head at the moment.
Popstar, you mentioned Popstar. I mentioned Mighty Wind, but I feel like that was like over 10 years ago, right? Oh God, that was 2003. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and
so there's
Popstar
all the
came
Christopher
out-
Guest stuff, but like that's from a while ago.
Yeah, Popstar
Yeah.
came out 2016 is when that
Oh
came
Jesus, really? Was that long ago? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, that's crazy because I guess as a film, it has kind of moved towards like streaming television and whatnot, right? Because you have, I mean, Weird's the most recent example that I can think of, and that was like 3 years ago, and Direct to Roku. Nobody knew what to do with this. They put Direct to Roku.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, anybody gonna see this? Plenty of people saw it. It's great, but that's you just don't see a lot of them in film form anymore. I think that's very much moved towards. I mean, a great example is the Studio,
Oh, yeah.
which is
You-
both
Seth
spiritual
Rogen.
and literal sequel to The Player, but it's kind of just done as a show. There isn't really like there's a documentary crew filming this kind of standpoint aspect to it. So I think it still happens, but not nearly as much. And also, it is kind of a gamble as much as, again, every person in the band loves these characters, and people that like love the original movie love those characters. But the big thing is going to be like, is it going to be any good? You know what I mean? And I hate to phrase it that way, but when something's has achieved a level of notoriety and belovedness,
Yeah.
there's a lot of chance for letdown, right? And that's something where I try to be careful about how I say it, but for those of us that were around when the Star Wars prequels came out, heartbreaking. If you didn't grow up with them, I mean, first of all, there never will be another monocultural moment like that ever again. Never will happen. And the build up for it was insane, and then what we got versus what was promised were very different things. And so there's there's a lot of kind of post traumatic stress disorder from that. Or those Indiana Jones, dude. If they would have stopped at Last Crusade, great. Those three movies are badass, but I don't like Crystal Skull at all, even a little bit. And the last one was like whatever, fine, deeply inessential, like not important that it existed in my opinion. But just like legacy sequels are hard because it's hard to get it right because you don't want to just redo the same thing. But how do you keep the magic and what made the original thing good and move it forward? And can you? I mean, look at Beetlejuice 2, right? Divisive.
Yeah. But sometimes, I mean, like I said, Blade Runner, they got that right. So that was a legacy sequel. Top Gun
And kind of
Maverick.
went somewhere different too, So it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of continuation, but it's going somewhere different. Maverick, yeah, I mean I feel like Top Gun Maverick is more just a straightforward action movie,
Yeah.
but not in a bad way. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to bring the homoerotic overtones when Val Kilmer was on his way out.
So what will be your final thoughts rating for This Is Spinal Tap? You think it's the greatest comedy ever?
Oh, it's up there. Yeah, for me, it's 5 star out of 5. I mean, it's hard to get much better. I have this in my top 100. Where? I couldn't tell you. I never look at the list, but it is in my top 100 movies of all time, and probably somewhere in the top 20, frankly. So it's I think it's fantastic. I do kind of get it if like not all of it vibes with people sometimes, just because it's one of the greatest comedies of all time if you're a musician. And I think it's up there if you're not. And I kind of stand by that assessment because there are certain things that just you feel seen in a way that like you can't in any other form of popular media as a musician with Spinal Tap, even though it's in absurd, irreverent ways. And there's something to be said for that. You know, like I'm a huge fan of something that sort of displays the idiosyncrasies and neuroses of niche interest. I mean, see Christopher Guest Best in Show, right? For the whole like dog dog show kind of thing. Another one of my favorites of all time. You know, similar principle that you don't need to be into showing dogs for awards to laugh at that. It's hilarious. It's hilarious if you didn't, right? But yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I hope that the sequel is good. But as long as it isn't just embarrassingly bad, it'll probably be fine. Nothing's going to be able to tarnish Spinal Tap for me. There's no way. I think everyone will just kind of pretend it didn't happen if it's not good.
Okay. You know, one of those people that when they see a bad Star Wars movie, they go, "It ruined my childhood," or anything like that.
No, come on. I mean, even with man, I hated those prequels. Hated. But it doesn't mean I hate Star Wars. I just was like, all right, these aren't for me. You know, fine, whatever. I loved Rogue One. Rogue One was great. I thought Rogue One was awesome. You know, and there's people that don't like Rogue One. They love the prequels. Okay, that's insanity to me, but it's okay to be into different things. Nothing should be able to ruin. I mean, I feel like Lucas tried by like CGIing in all that crazy. Like, what are you doing? Keep him away from it. Stop taking with it. It was done. Like all of those changes were for the worse, if you ask me. And those are recent in mind because we just did all the Star Wars, the original trilogy and Rogue One,
Yeah.
so they're all very much in mind. Whereas like, God, all of these changes are bad. Like the best one just doesn't do any harm. And there's no way to view the original movies, and that comes back to Apocalypse Now. It's the same sort of thing. Oh, we've seen Apocalypse Now. Which version? He's done like 4 of them. And I don't know. I mean, to a certain degree, it's his art, fine. But I think once it's released, it belongs to everybody. So Spinal Tap belongs to everybody, and that there's nothing that can be done that will take that away from people that love it, myself inclusive.
So I think for
5
you,
out of 5.
yeah, this is cinema. Yeah, this is cinema.
Absolutely, you better believe it, baby.
Oh yeah, I'm probably there, right there with you. I think this is a strong mockumentary comedy. There works on all levels. Even if you don't get the references, I think you'll just laugh at the absurdity of these people and this band. Strong comedic force here. I mean, with Christopher Guest, with Michael McKinnon, with Harry Shears, which both of those guys, Harry Shears and Michael McKinnon, I think probably met each other on SNL. I think that's their connection there. SNL.
They were both on SNL. Yeah, that was not for long. They were on that weird. There was like a weird season where they like, you look at the cast, you're like, that's amazing, and you're like, yeah, it didn't really work though.
Robert Downey Jr. and all
Robert Downey Jr. That's right. Yeah, it was like, hey, let's get like super gifted sketch artists and improvisers, and then a couple just stars.
Yeah,
it was like what? But yeah, and yeah, it's. I think it works too because it is sort of like the Avengers of comedy to a certain degree, and everyone is very aligned, and they're musically inclined, and they're just good enough. They're just good enough that like you believe that this is a band that maybe they're punching above their weight class half the time, and that's okay. We can laugh at them and with them at the same time, and that's wonderful. So I think that's rare to see because I don't like a lot of comedy that's punching down. You know what I mean? And I feel like as preposterous and ridiculous as these dudes are, and they are both preposterous and ridiculous, there's a healthy sense of the absurd, and you never feel like it's cruel.
Yeah, that sense. Yeah, good. Even Naked Gun was. I was surprised that Naked Gun was even PG-13. I was like, oh wow, it is PG-13. Like it doesn't have to be vulgar. It doesn't have to be. It's like it's great. Hey, you can still do great comedy. That PG-13.
They did some edgy stuff too, and it was just like, oh okay, right on, respect. All the infrared stuff. I mean, hilarious. That was funniest infrared sequence I think I've seen in any movie ever. Great.
So 2 strong This Is Cinemas for This Is Spinal Tap. I'm eager to hear what you think about the sequel. So it's coming out this week.
Yeah, I'll let you know, man. I'm crossing fingers.
Yeah.